Happy Thursday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Altar Live Show. I am Andy, and that over there, of course, other side. I have my camera flipped. I'm sorry. That over there is not Maeve Brooks. Maeve is like currently in the wilds of Maryland. I didn't know there were wilds in Maryland, but she's like in a cabin somewhere. That over there is our good friend and wonderful, wonderful CEO, Stephanie. How are you today?
I am doing so well. I am no Maeve Brooks. I will try my best to fill her shoes today.
I didn't have time to switch out this main thumbnail where my head is directly below Maeve's chin. So I apologize for that. We were kind of running up against it, but the early part of the show today is typically where we like to give the fine Altar Live family some recommendations from our own life, and typically it's some sort of movie recommendation or TV show. Last week I did a food recommendation because it was Easter, and everyone needs to learn about the goodness of spicy mustard on ham. I don't know if a lot of people knew that. Yeah, it was a mind blower the first time I tried it. So, Stephanie, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have a recommendation for our wonderful Altar Live family?
Can I give a book recommendation?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Something people read still.
What is that? What is a book? I have a Kindle. Yeah, everything goes on my Kindle now.
I have been I'm a big Shauna Nyquist fan.
Okay.
For any of you who like her writing, sassy, real, authentic. She just came out with a new book. It's very good. Some real great quotes from there. So head on over, check that out.
What's the book called? Do you know?
Oh my gosh, you're testing me.
Hold on. I have I'm just typing Shauna Nyquist into the internet right now, and it says Finding Your Way Through Heart. Cold tangerines, bittersweet.
Nope.
I guess I haven't learned.
Yes.
I guess I haven't learned that yet.
Yep.
Huh. I do like Shauna Nyquist. She used to drive me nuts. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then I heard her on a podcast with maybe Carrie Newhoff, and I realized, the cliche, and she butted up against the cliches of like, okay, to be a woman in Christian leadership, you have to have gone through a divorce, or you have to have lost a baby, or all these other things. And she said, that's messed up. That's bogus. And it was at that moment that I saw her standing up to conventions that I went, you girl, I like you now. And then I started kind of delving into her stuff. I can't read her stuff a lot because I think a lot of it is aimed at like my wife, and so my wife likes her. I gravitate towards
it's definitely a female audience. Yep. Or if that resonates with you, that's her, that she knows her audience in that sense.
Absolutely, and that's great. I mean, we love being able to speak to all different parties and all that other stuff. I will say, Shauna Nyquist, her humor on her Instagram is sneaky funny. So if any, I think it's at S Nyquist or whatever. At S Nyquist. Go follow her. She will sometimes talk about her kids pooping, and then go right from that to some sort of like ministry tip, and then back to like how her husband doesn't know how to put 14 pillows on the bed, and then towards like she's great. So highly recommend that follow. Stephanie, thank you for that recommendation. We super appreciate that. How was Easter for you and your crew?
Easter was so good. The Antonucci Leith clan, Antonucci's are my maiden name, parents' side. We had a full Leith day on Saturday with all the cousins, grandparents, relatives. No Easter egg hunt since we're all grown-ups now, which was a little disappointing. And then Sunday was all the Italian side of my family, all the Antonucci's, and there was a lot of Easter egg hunting.
So here's a question. Do you pronounce it mozzarella or is it mutts? Fresh mutts?
Oh, good question. Mozzarella.
Okay, it is mozzarella. Okay.
Mozzarella.
Do you guys do anything weird or special for Easter dinner?
Oh, not for Easter dinner, but I will tell you, my mother, I thought everyone did this when they were kids, and then quickly realized this was a very weird family tradition. Not so weird, but meaningful. Maybe weird to some. We make an Easter nativity scene. So you know how you like set up a Christmas nativity?
Yeah.
So my mom will take all our Playmobil. We played with Playmobil as kids.
Yes.
Like Legos. She'll set up this scene on a tray, and it sits in our dining room centerpiece, and it's basically, some salt dough tomb, some rocks, with some wooden crosses and some figurines around, and the scene evolves as we get closer to Easter. Jesus gets wrapped up in a tissue paper with spices from the spice cabinet, put in the tomb.
Of course.
Sunday morning, she hides Jesus somewhere in the house and gives us a series of clues to go find Jesus. So this Easter, my siblings and I are full-grown adults now. I'm 28, and my siblings are around that age. We all live in different places, so she made a virtual Easter hunt for us, hunt for Jesus. So we woke up early on Sunday morning to a series of clues for my mom, where we all had to go through our Bibles and various other places and figure out her clues to find Jesus.
I love this. Oh my gosh. Did you guys, was Jesus made out of dough that you could like cook later and eat, in terms of like, okay, and turn it into communion and all that?
Bordering on heresy there,
a little bit.
No, she didn't go that far, but I would not put it past her. That would, anything my mom can do for symbolism, she will do.
Awesome. That's a fantastic idea. My kids are unfortunately too old to do that, but man, I would steal that one in a heartbeat. So anybody out there listening that's got young kids that want to teach them the opposite of the nativity scene and teach them the Easter story in a very graphic, smelly fashion, go for it. Highly recommend it. A little bit of oregano, a little bit of paprika right there as for the burial spices. I love it. Cool. Well, today we've been kind of in a series, Maeve and I, on the Altar Live show that has really been geared towards walking you through really the quote unquote onboarding process. And all that means is from starting Altar Live, getting interested in how Altar Live works, into like, oh my gosh, I want to try this. So, we kick into a trial, and then kind of introducing it to your team and introducing it to your community more than anything. And we've talked to a number of churches over the past couple of weeks. We've gone through kind of a series of really tips and tricks, and we wanted to bring in the head honcho today because Stephanie's actually been working on something that she calls it a white paper. It's really, it's like a manifesto almost, and I'm going to kind of turn it over to you in a minute. We're calling it the Roadmap to Engagement. I'm going to pull up my pretty little title here, and it really is kind of the pathway to digital engagement in particular. So Stephanie, give us first of all the genesis of this white paper, and then kind of walk us through where your head's been and what you've been thinking about.
Yeah. I think about this, this is what I think a lot about, is not just, the technology side of what we're doing online digitally, but what does success look like when it comes to engaging people online? And we've often, the story of Altar starting was me and a local pastor friend needing to get his live stream online and realizing, the challenge was not as much getting online, but how to engage the person on the other side of the screen. That word engage is a hard one to pin down, and we've all been in the process of trying to really understand that. Where I have, my research, my conversations with people, and what my, the blogs and emails that I get have led me to is starting to see a trend. And this trend is not coined by me. I cannot take credit for this. A lot of people have started calling it this, but we see the world moving from what we would call a broadcast cycle into an engagement cycle. And if I could define those two terms, we say, a broadcast cycle is this idea of, a single point of engagement centered around a specific thing or event. And the idea there is that the audience is primarily an audience. They're consumers of this piece of content. Broadcast cycle is very much what happens for TV, radio, even Netflix shows. You would still say is a broadcast. The thing is, though, if you think about your own media consumption and the way that we engage digitally online, the world is starting to move into more of what we call an engagement cycle. This is the idea that it's not just one thing that you're watching as an audience member, but it's multiple things that have entered your life in a rhythm almost. Your life is, there's habits that have formed around things. There's a community that you belong to. There's conversations that are being had. If we think of broadcast cycle as being a one-way feed, engagement cycle is like a two-way conversation. And we see this on the rise in all sorts of places, not just in churches, in the way that people are consuming content online, in the types of communities they're joining, in the move off of Facebook and, the trends there, still wanting to find community in places. So we see this overarching trend, from broadcast to engagement. What does it have to do with churches? Well, we think about the majority of churches that, going into the pandemic were primarily, if they had any online presence, it was primarily in that broadcast cycle mode. And because that was really the standard. And in many ways, digital tools hadn't quite caught up to the ability to do engagement. But broadcast for most churches means, the one thing that you offer online is your live stream service. And maybe it has a chat box on it as well. So if you're thinking about how people are engaging with you online, that's their primary way of viewing you. The alternative to that would be an engagement cycle. These are churches that have these stepping stones in place, moving from, just a live stream to, all right, I'm not just watching your service online. I'm volunteering. I'm going to small groups. I'm having asynchronous and synchronous discussions, maybe on social media platforms, maybe in other places. And that really fits with the model and the world that we live in now, which is a hybrid world. This reality that our lives are lived both offline and offline and online. So, it's the idea of becoming present in both of those places for people.
So I guess the big question is, what has led to, outside of pandemic and all of that other stuff, has it been a realization that has led people, or has it been a specific realization that has led people into moving away from the broadcast cycle and into the engagement cycle? Or is it a monetary sort of fiduciary thing? Is it pandemic related? What can you identify as kind of the KPI on this?
Yeah. And well, if I'm understanding your question right, what I see is that in many ways, the thing that has been the precursor to moving into engagement, what does that need? It's that we are moving into that hybrid way of living. Humans need community. We need connection. And so previously, we were probably filling up that connection and community bucket, those needs, with in-person things. And so when we're consuming TV or content, that's more in the entertainment category. But now as we're living our life in both places, there's this desire that when I go online, I'm finding human connection. I'm not just going online to, see content. I think that's been a big driver of that. I do think the pandemic has sped that up in many ways as we have become more interconnected globally.
So when you talk to churches, because you talk to lots of churches every single week, it seems to be like the main thing that you're doing is walking churches through. What is the biggest pain point or realization that they have when you're talking to them in terms of online community and digital engagement lacking?
Good question. All right, so I'll say, let me tell you what everybody wishes online engagement
Great,
was.
I'm all ears.
All right, someone discovers your church online. They watch your Sunday service on Facebook. Then they start posting in the comments. They introduce themselves to the pastoral team, and they even fill out a connection card. Then they start coming regularly, even online still every week. They're checking in, they're commenting, they're joining. They actually sign up to be an online church volunteer. They start regularly tithing, and they're even sharing it with all their friends. That's what happens every time, right?
Sure, absolutely.
If any of you out there, if that's the story of your church and that it's always what happens, you've unlocked an amazing formula.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to be the best church in the world at that point.
Yeah. The problem is this is not what usually happens. The reality that most churches that I talk to face, this is really what they experience. They say, let's use Sandra as an example. Sandra discovers their church online. She starts watching the service on Facebook, but she doesn't post in the comments because she doesn't really know what to say. Maybe there's not a lot of other people commenting. She doesn't want to be the odd one out. And because she doesn't post, you don't actually know that she's watching. So you don't make a personal connection with her and she with you. The sermon might really connect to her, but she's really wanting to find a community to belong to. So but maybe she lives an hour from the church. It's hard for her to drive back and forth to the church, and so she's torn. Like, do I commit to this church where I feel like I'm being fed, I feel like I'm connecting, if I'm only going to be online? So maybe she keeps watching every Sunday, but she never really comments. And after a few weeks, she really falls out of the habit of watching, even though the sermons are great, because what she was really looking for was people to do life with, friends. So this is the engagement pathway problem that we see a lot of churches having. This idea that it's a leaky funnel problem. It's not that live streaming is wrong. It's that after somebody watches your live stream, what happens next? How do they actually have stepping stones to become a part of your community? Because people don't join your community unless they have a relationship with you first, or they're super motivated to become part of your community.
So what is that sort of pathway that you're talking about then? Like what's the funnel, the stair step? What does it actually look like?
It's a good question. So I have a nifty graphic, and I think you probably have it.
I have it right. Hello. Oh, I got to hit live. Duh. I'm using a new thing over here. Hold on.
No worries.
Where is it?
Suspense for all of you watching.
Everybody, all of our fans right now. There it is, publish. Cool. Let me blow it up just a little bit so everyone can see it. There we go. How about that?
Yeah, so we call this a roadmap to engagement or pathway to engagement. So when I've, talking to so many churches, this is the trend that I've seen. And this trend is not unique to just how faith communities build online engagement. If you've ever heard any of these terms, you'll hear them in marketing, you'll hear them in community building, nonprofit community building, all sorts of things use this model. But it maps to what the example we just gave. What we usually say is, at the top of that funnel is awareness. Sandra finds out about your church. Platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, your website, these are really good at building awareness. And they're really good at doing that because of the algorithm. This idea that, you can have a big organic spread, somebody's sharing it in their community, there's far and wide reach. Maybe you're running ads. Maybe you're on lots of different channels. You might be knocking it out of park there and building really good awareness. Awesome. The next step after that is what we call consideration. This is where Sandra's thinking to herself, she's watching your sermon, she's browsing your website, and she's thinking, does this church, is it resonating with my felt needs? Can I see myself as a part of this community? What as a community are we working towards together? And can I imagine myself here? She's considering all these things. And often these are the people that are actually, watching your services online, checking you out, seeing what the interaction is like between other people online to get a feel for who are these people? What's the culture like? Most churches doing this are using platforms like Church Online, your website, Facebook, YouTube, again, these other places where you're having a broadcast live stream. The gap starts to form from consideration to participation. So once Sandra says, yeah, I can see myself here, but I have to drive an hour to get there. What is it that I can do to, where is that stepping stone for me to head into? This is where the gap starts to form. If a church is, in that hybrid model where they have, opportunities online as well as in person to engage people, they're most likely using something like Zoom to host small groups, midweek events, prayers, devotionals, and things like that. But again, if it's just live streamed to a social media page, that's often a one-way participation. What we're talking about here is Sandra's ability to actually actively participate, answer questions, talk with other people, and get to know other people at the church, not just the pastor, the person on stage. And then at the end of that funnel, ultimately what it leads to is relationship. We said in that ideal scenario, Sandra is, becomes an online host herself, or she starts inviting her friends, or she is, actively tithing. She is creating her own small group. There's an ownership that starts to take place there. That's really where we see, the final gap start to form, is how does that relationship get stewarded over time?
So I see you've got Ultra Live bracketed on the bottom three. What does that entail?
Good question. So how does Alter fit into that from the software perspective? So remember, Alter is a software platform. We're a tool to make things easier to bridge that gap. And so when we designed Alter, this was the gap we were trying to fill: how to take somebody beyond just the consideration all the way through to relationship really easy, making that easy for your staff and volunteers to manage, but also making it easy for people who join to have an automatic connection with someone else, not just the live stream on stage, but another person. What we like to say is, we've designed to move people from anonymous to known to connected with at least one other person in any event or meeting that they might come to.
Interesting. So I don't know if you've presented this to anybody yet, but in your head, where is going to be the sticking point, or where is going to be the point that you're going to have to stop the most and explain to people?
You mean on the engagement track?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think it's on the participation piece.
I agree.
Often what we say, and I will say this even of Alter, a tool does not automatically make community happen. It's people that make community happen. Yep. And this is what we, call the network effect, a term, coined by another great software platform called Mighty Networks, and a few other social media studies and things like this have identified the network effect. It is the engine behind what makes an amazing group form and eventually run itself. And the network effect is when every member who joins adds value to the community. And so it's not reliant upon you producing more and more content or cooler and cooler events or completely host driven. It's valuable because members feel equally connected to each other as they do to the leaders. So that participation phase of the funnel, that one is a really hard one to nail down if your entire leadership team and staff and resources that you have aren't actively thinking about beyond just production of content, broadcast of content, but true engagement of members with each other.
Where do you see a lot of churches putting their time, money, and effort? Is it solely in awareness and then kind of letting the relationship fall by the wayside, or are people starting at awareness and then skipping automatically to relationship and missing those inner two there?
I think it's the second one. I think a lot of churches do a lot that we're getting better at awareness. We now have presence on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Those aren't bad things. Actually, in fact, you should have awareness across all of those platforms, and be intentional about your outreach. And then a lot of churches have mastered the relationship piece. Maybe you're really good at hosting things, online small groups or things like that. But what you end up seeing is the same people participating over and over again, because people are coming, they're watching, and they're leaving. Those that were already had a relationship with you are staying and continuing to give to the community and be a part of it. But there's no trickle-down effect.
Interesting. How, anybody watching this live or on demand, how can they, if they are even interested in any of this, if they're kind of nodding their head going, yeah, I think we're caught in between awareness and consideration, or consideration and even relationship, how can they get involved with Alter?
Good question. So the first thing that I would say, let's have a call and talk about your strategy. Again, a tool is only as useful as your vision, strategy, and resources that you're ready to commit to actually intentionally fostering an online community. And we can get into all sorts of things, different models, hybrid, online campus, online only, and multiple mixes in between. We can talk about what that looks like for a small church, a medium church, a large church, and even a church plant. All of those have different approaches, and you can be successful at any of those sizes and levels. It really starts first with the strategy and approach that you're taking. So that's the first thing I would say. Let's talk. Next, I would do an assessment of your own community. What do they want? What do those people online that are joining with you want out of the community? That's, in the when I teach students creativity and innovation, and the first thing that we say is you have to ask the people that you're actually solving the problem for, what is the problem that you have? So do that with your folks online. Start interviewing people. Reach out to them. Ask them, what is it about the church that they really value? What about the online experience do they value? And where do they feel the gaps are forming?
You put a piece in here that I kind of wanted you to talk about real quick. You said two things. Number one, how do you measure engagement? So how do you know if engagement is working? And number two, Altar is not a social media replacement. So let's take those in order. First off, how do you talk about measurement of engagement?
Good question. This is the most important piece of what you're doing online. If you can't measure it, you don't know what's working. And so where our critique of, multiple platforms like Facebook, YouTube, church online platform, Zoom come in, is your analytics are now spread out between all of those. So if I'm really trying to get a good snapshot of, are people making it from awareness all the way to relationship, I have to go to all those different platforms separately to try to track that. But none of those are really tracking individuals. I can't see a person's individual journey through that unless they anecdotally share it with me. And so that knowing that is what, we've tried to build into Altar, is really good analytics to see all the way through somebody's, you could almost call it a user journey. And the things that you're measuring, things that matter. The first thing is what we call MAUs, monthly active users. How many people are actually engaging with you month over month? And how do you measure that engagement? What does that count as? The second thing is length of engagement. That's a pretty standard one we've all gotten used to on YouTube and Facebook and other places. How long are people watching for or staying on? On Altar, what's unique is you can also measure that on meetings and events, not just on time viewed of a video, but all the other things that people might be participating in as well. The third thing that we see is quality of engagement. How it's not just views that matter, but are they making connections with other people? Are they chatting? Are they talking? Are they initiating? Those things matter too, and we're able to track those in Altar. The last one is churn. How many people don't come back? That is also really important to know. Churn is a very business term in the church world. We have to remember it's relationships. There's a spiritual element to all of these things as well. But there is something about understanding, why aren't people coming back? What is it about it that, they didn't feel like this could be a priority in their life right now?
Absolutely.
So those four things are incredibly important to measure. And again, if you can't measure, it's really hard to know what's actually working.
Absolutely. Now, walk me through your statement that Altar is not a social media replacement. It's a destination platform. For the uninitiated that are looking at Altar and going, well, that just looks a little bit like Facebook, or that looks a little bit like church online. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. So remember, again, Altar is not your top of the funnel tool. We're really a bottom of the funnel tool. So we very much recommend churches still have a social media strategy. Find some way of reaching. And, there's two approaches to that. And we can get into this maybe on another Altar Live show.
Let's do it.
There's an omni-channel approach and a multi-channel approach. And those two are different. They have pros and cons to both. Omni-channel means you're really owning the entire ecosystem. You have maybe an app that people are a part of, and you're sending regular notifications, and you're trying to get them to engage with it every single day or regularly. Multi-channel means you're going to where the people are. You're across every, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, anything else that they might be on, and you're just getting into their daily rhythms that they might already have on those platforms. Like I said, pros and cons to both of those, but you're going to need one of those strategies. Both of those rely on both live and on-demand content. And when we talk about live content, that's where Altar comes in. We are that bottom of the funnel piece, the secret sauce that makes members actually connected to one another. And the quality of relationship increase over just quantity.
Absolutely. As we kind of round the bend here and start to close up shop, if there's anything to anybody that's watching this going, man, I would love to talk. I would love to even just pick your brain a little bit. How can we get in touch with you? How can we get in touch with the rest of the Altar team?
Oh, great question. Go to our website, hit that schedule product walkthrough. That goes straight to my calendar. You are more than welcome to hop on a call with me. Shoot me an email at stephanie@altarlive.com. Andy's an online pastor. We've got a lot of people on our team that actually do this day in and day out. So if you're interested in actually learning how to build a community, we're ready to talk.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I can't echo that enough. The coolest part of being able to be on this gigantic team that we're on is that we get to see churches changing each and every week. We get to see them using Ultra Live, using events, using meetings, and actually watching lives change around that. And that is so fun to do. And if you are watching this and you're kind of questioning, you're kind of scratching your head and you're waiting to make the jump, I cannot encourage you enough just to go schedule a meeting. It is literally, it will cost you nothing to schedule a meeting and talk things through and even just process out loud with somebody else who actually knows what you're doing. So with that, Stephanie, we're gonna close up shop here and wish Maeve a happy trip back. We're praying for you, Maeve. And Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us here on the show today. This has been great. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Maeve, I hope I did you justice.
I mean, you didn't talk about Gilmore Girls enough, so there is that.
True.
And we didn't talk about Schitt's Creek, and that's okay. We'll get to that next time. We'll make up for that on the next episode.
Love it.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody out there, thanks so much for watching the Ultra Live Show. We'll catch you next week. Love you. Bye.